We have all kinds of NHL news and rumors to take a look at here in today's video, including some trade talk around the Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins. We now have confirmation that talks have been held regarding Pavel Zacha, and we also have some names on Montreal's side that have been brought into the conversation and could be considered if they do reach a deal. Plus, we have the latest trade talk around some other players like Rasmus Andersson, the latest on Jason Robertson. Could the Leafs and the Sharks strike a deal to kind of help both sides as well? And the latest on Kirill Kaprizov. Some interesting comments today from Elliotte Friedman on the rejection of the biggest contract in NHL history. We also have updates on Luke Hughes, Jack Roslovic, some more PTOs, a signing in Buffalo, and of course the NHL has released a statement and decided the fate of the 5 players in the 2018 World Junior case. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we do have a ton of NHL news and rumors to take a look at here today. First up, I did do a video earlier on this topic. I just want to touch on it quickly. I'll recommend you take a look at the other video for a little bit more in-depth discussion around the news, but the NHL did release a statement today confirming what their decision is on the 5 players from the World Junior team from Team Canada from the 2018 trial that just were acquitted of charges here not long ago. We know that Bill Daly, the Deputy Commissioner of the NHL, was asked about this at the media availabilities they were doing in Vegas just in the last couple of days, and he did say that we should have some announcement on that very soon. Well, here we are. The NHL has announced today that the 5 players that were on trial in that case will be eligible to return to the NHL as of December the 1st. And now I went through the entire statement a little bit more in depth and everything on the other video. So if you want to see everything the NHL had to say and the exact breakdown of their decision, check that video out after you're done with this one. But certainly, like I said, to kind of summarize, essentially they said that they went through their own investigation, which we know. They also looked at all the findings and opinions from the judge in the case from the trial, and they decided that even though the players were acquitted of the charges and they weren't found to be criminal in nature, that they were still, not good behavior, basically, and that they still have major issues with how these players were behaving during this situation. Of course, this was in 2018 before any of them arrived officially as regular NHL players, but nonetheless, they expect their players to conduct themselves with the highest standards, and this did not meet those standards at all. So they also factored in the fact that they've been away from the game for an extended time because of the charges that were brought. So clearly they've missed, I think most of them around 20 months right now that they've been away from the NHL. So they factor that in along with what they feel the discipline should be, and they're suspended until December the 1st. So as of that date, they'll be able to play NHL games if they receive contracts. Now, they can sign contracts with NHL teams as of October the 15th. That's when they're eligible to sign a contract. As of November the 15th, they would be eligible to start training and practicing with the teams if they sign with, if that happens. And then December the 1st would be when they were eligible to actually play a game, and their contracts would start and kick in at that point. Of course, we saw Alex Formenton, which we talked about just a few days ago, announced we talked that he was signed in Switzerland until December. I'm guessing that that's probably not a coincidence. They probably already were told before this was released that was going to be their punishment, and they'll seek to be signing contracts at that time. Of course, we don't know at this point if any of them are going to, what the interest is going to be, what teams are going to feel about this or not. Like I said before, it doesn't matter. I guess not looking at this from a how you feel about it perspective. The NHLPA was pushing for them to be brought back and be allowed to play, mainly because they were not found guilty of these charges. So they feel, as a union, because it's their job to fight for their players and their jobs, that they should be allowed to continue to work now that this case is over and they weren't found guilty on any of the charges. So from the league's perspective, I don't know. I mean, I know some people want to see them banned, and I get that, and I understand the behavior, but I don't know what the NHL really could from a legal standpoint. I guess if the teams, it's really going to be up to the teams. If the teams don't want anything to do with these players, they can essentially ban them from the league by refusing to sign them. Nobody has to be signed. So we'll see how the teams go about things, but there's definitely was already some speculation, and a few of them are garnering interest. I don't know what will happen, but that is where things stand with those players. We at least now know where the league is, their opinion, and where their position is, and what their discipline is going to be. So if any of them return, we'll know around October 15th or after if teams are going to offer them any type of contracts. Now, on some other news, we get lots of other news to look at here today. The Buffalo Sabres today made an interesting move, signing another goaltender. They've signed former Avalanche and Sharks goalie, well, and Ranger goalie too, where he started his career. Alex Georgiev gets a 1-year deal with the Sabres at $825K. Like, they already have 3 goaltenders. I mean, I know Devin Levi can continue to play in the minors this year without waivers. I believe it's his last year that he's eligible without needing them, but he's been really good in the minors. So, I mean, I know he hasn't been able to put it together on a long-term, consistent basis at the NHL yet, but at what point are you going to let him have that opportunity? I mean, they got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who was signed a couple of years back, just a longer-term deal. They got Alex Lyon, who they signed. Now, he's not signed long-term, but still. And then you get Georgiev, and then you get Levi. So between Lyon and Georgiev, you suspect at least one of them is going to end up on waivers. Or, like, I do wonder, because I've said this before, I wonder if they would consider trading Luukkonen. I don't know for sure. That's just a theory. I've had that theory for a while. And the more goalies they bring in, it kind of makes me wonder. So, interesting things going on with the Sabres. I mean, I guess if Georgiev can clear waivers and play in the minors, then the full contract can be buried. He could be the tandem partner with Levi. They could have a pretty good tandem at Rochester. I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing, but just a lot of goalies with the Sabres. The Stars have a few more PTOs today. Of course, yesterday we confirmed they were bringing in goaltender Antoine Bibeau yesterday, who's been affiliated with NHL teams in the past, but has spent the last couple of years overseas. They are also bringing in Adam Ernie, who's got a decent amount of NHL experience. So Ernie's going to camp with the Stars on a PTO, as well as Cross Hanas and Anthony Cristoforo. So they will have at least 4 players in camp on a PTO. Jack Roslovic right now still by far the top unsigned player. Hearing there's 3 teams which were mentioned to be Toronto, Vancouver, Carolina. But we had already heard from Canucks media that they were out on Roslovic, that they were in the mix, they were considering it, but they've kind of backed away. So I don't know why the Canucks name is still being mentioned. Carolina, of course, he played there last year. He's been linked to the Leafs, but I know the Leafs need to make a subsequent move. So clearly he's waiting for something to kind of give here. But yeah, those are the names we're hearing around Roslovic, but I don't know that Vancouver's really in there. I really think that might be some old intel in the article I was reading here today. Luke Hughes, one of the top unsigned restricted free agents. I know Elliot Friedman had a new 32 Thoughts podcast come out this morning. One of the things he mentioned about Luke Hughes was he says that he thinks this is one to watch for next week when we get to a situation where the players are starting to come to training camp, and he doesn't worry about this one. So he thinks by the time camp opens, there's a good sign Luke Hughes will be signed. We'll see. I mean, he doesn't have any intel to suggest things are going poorly. Like we had heard before, the main issue seemed to be the difference in opinion on term. Whether or not New Jersey gives him what he wants or he caves and gives what they want, I don't know. But Elliot's not worried about it. Thinks it's going to get settled next week. We will see where things go. Now, on a bunch of other trade front, let's start with first. Actually, one thing that's not really a trade front, it could lead to that, which we talked about yesterday. Kirill Kaprizov, who was also another discussion point from Friedman's podcast this morning. Elliot thinks, like looking at this news here, it's been confirmed. Like I know Bill Guerin came out and kind of wondered where Frank Saravalli was getting his info, but you know what? If you look at Guerin's words carefully, he never really denied that Saravalli's report was inaccurate or wrong or anything like that. He just said that he knows who didn't leak it. I'm like, okay. But Michael Russo, very well connected with that team. He's confirmed it with his sources. Elliott's didn't deny it either. So I really think that all the reports around Kaprizov's camp rejecting the richest contract in NHL history, 8 years, $128 million, is accurate. Now, nobody also, like even Elliott says, he doesn't believe that Kaprizov, that their camp really prefers a shorter term. Russo said the same thing on his emergency podcast he did last night or yesterday. Is it possible that they do settle and that Kaprizov signs a shorter term? I do think that is a possibility, but as of this point, none of these connected reporters think that that's really what Kaprizov is pushing for, or that they've countered with a short-term offer. So, Elliott was wondering, he thinks his theory, and this is just a theory, he didn't have any sources to say this was true, but he's wondering if Kaprizov and his agent, for them to turn down that kind of money, they must be convinced that if they push it to UFA market next summer, that they're going to get even more, and a decent amount more. He wonders if there's a team out there that they think will offer Kaprizov 7 years in 19 to 20 million. Can you imagine that? That would be insane. Now, there's also the possibility, something that Kaprizov might be kind of not ready to sign because waiting for McDavid to sign to see where he ends up. Obviously McDavid being the best player in the league, his contract will affect other people. I mean, McDavid's a center, Kaprizov's a winger. I'm not really sure. To me, I would think the Leon Draisaitl contract would be your upper tier. I mean, to be honest, no disrespect to Kirill, but I don't think he's on. Leon's accomplished a lot more, right? So I don't know that you can command the same money. I mean, he can get close, but that's, to me, about as far as you could get. At least you would think. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure how they feel about things. But can you imagine if Elliott's right, that they think that there's another team that they'd get, not only more money, but we're talking, 7 years, right? So thinking like at least $3 million more per year. So that's, instead of $128 million, it'd be $140 million or thereabouts, right? We'll see. But obviously Bill Guerin and the Wild, I think they're more stressed than they're letting on, because one of the things he said in his interview that he doesn't want the fan base to be all stressed out thinking that they're going to lose Kaprizov. Well, it's just a reality that, until he signs, it is a risk. And when you hear about him turning down that kind of money, then it makes you think that it's not about the money. And if it's not about the money, then does he even want to be there? That's the question. When your team that you're with and you've been playing with for an extended time and you're supposedly loyal to offers you the richest contract the league has ever seen, and you're like, yeah, no, I think I'll pass. The alarm bells are going to be set off. So we'll see if Elliott's onto something or what have you. Jim Nill, the general manager for the Dallas Stars, also had an interview today that was interesting as well. Talked to, actually, I think it was already conducted. I heard it today, but he talked to Dave McCarthy on Sirius XM Radio. And they talked a little bit about Jason Robertson and all the rumors surrounding this player throughout the offseason. And Nill said essentially he confirmed that they've definitely had lots of conversations with other teams around Robertson, but it wasn't the Dallas Stars deciding that we need to trade this guy and starting to shop him. He says that it's a case of other teams looking at their salary cap and everything and looking at the contract status and thinking, okay, they might have a tough time getting this done. I wonder what they're going to do. And lots of teams are calling. He said, to be fair, they should be doing that because he's a really good player. He's doesn't have much term left. And other teams, he said, I'm not surprised to see, because they know how they feel about him, that lots of other teams would be interested in having them on their team. So no surprise there, right? He's a great player. Teams are going to be interested, there's no doubt. So he said, we've had lots of conversations around this player, but at the end of the day, we really, really like this player, see him as a big part of the team, and we would prefer to sign him. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to come to terms, right? So this says, this kind of confirms some of the intel we've heard lately from other reporters saying that the Stars' first choice is to sign Robertson, but, with it, they need to kind of know where everything stands, because if they do end up in a situation where they can't come to an agreement and they feel like they need to make a trade, then they need to have time to do that so they don't lose them, right? At the end of the day, he's going to be getting a big money contract, like Jim Nill said. Robertson's still young enough that he's going to get the biggest contract of his career likely on this next deal, right? So, ultimately they don't want to end up having to move him, but they obviously will if they have to. But the first choice is to sign him, and saying that, essentially just all the chatter around him is teams inquiring, which is not surprising. And I kind of half believe that, because we've heard reporters say that Dallas was probably smart for kind of engaging in these talks to get a feel for what the market is for this guy in case they need to go down that road. So we'll see where the things go. With the Maple Leafs, has come across an article today wondering if the Sharks and Leafs could swing a deal to kind of help both teams out. I think this if this happened, it would be more of a help for the Leafs. So I don't know how much generosity Mike Greer's feeling right now, but essentially that we know the Leafs need to make a cost-cutting move, preferably like Kampf or Yarncroke or both. And could the Sharks take one of these players, and not really have to, either whether it be future considerations or maybe just a late round pick, that there shouldn't be a whole lot of a big ask for, taking one of these players off their hands. Essentially, with the Sharks, we know that they took the Carey Price contract because the fact that they're going to probably trade a bunch of players throughout the year by the deadline, and they don't want to have to fall below the cap floor. So this kind of gives them the ability to not necessarily be in a situation where they have to take players back, that they can move a contract and not worry about it. Could they take one? They have the room. I don't know if it really makes a lot of sense for them now. So we'll see. I mean, the Leafs are going to probably need a team like them that have the space and are, kind of not expecting to be super competitive this year to take a guy like this. They might look at it and be like, okay, we can take on this player, kind of revitalize him a little bit, give him a bigger role, maybe, expand his value, and then flip him at the deadline for a better asset than we had to give up, or that they even got in the first place. Like if they take a player and say, we'll take him, but throw in a 5th or 6th round pick, and then they might be able to flip him for something even better at the deadline, maybe get multiple assets just for paying a guy for part of a season. Like it is possible. But I'm not completely sold on the idea that the Sharks really need the help. But interesting concept. We'll see where that goes. Chris Johnson, NHL insider for TSN, was talking about Rasmus Andersson in his latest pod, and he believes that from what he's heard and what he knows about that situation, that he still feels that the Vegas Golden Knights are a place that Rasmus Andersson would be finding attractive and would be a preferred destination. Now, I know Rasmus himself had denied reports that he kind of handcuffed Craig Conroy, the GM of the Flames, that if he were to be traded, that he would only accept a trade to one team that he would sign with. There was belief that it was more than one. It was probably like 2. So I don't know if he was really just kind of a technicality or how honest he was there. But at the end of the day, Vegas has been believed to be the preferred spot. So whether or not he ends up there, we don't know. But based on the intel from CJ, that still seems to be applicable. And we'll see what the Flames end up doing. They claim that they're comfortable going into the season with Rasmus. He's got a lot to play for, including his next contract. So there's no reason for him not to be giving it his all as per usual. So we'll see where things go on that front. Now, another big update as well. This one from RG.org between Marco D'Amico and Jimmy Murphy, talking about some trade chatter around the Habs and to some degree the Flames as well. But the player in question here, that's the target, is Bruins centerman Pavel Zacha. Now, we've heard off and on talk around Zacha and a number of teams linked to this player, including Montreal, for kind of off and on throughout the last, I'd say probably 4 to 6 weeks. It sure feels like, based on what these reporters have been able to confirm and source out now, that those rumors are true, that there indeed have been some talks between these two teams. Now, the article that was posted here confirms that the Habs and the Flames, according to their league sources, have held talks with the Bruins on Pavel Zacha. Now, as I mentioned before, the Bruins and the Habs, of course, have been in the same division for a long, long time. We haven't seen a trade involving roster players between those two clubs in 24 years. So we've seen them trade like draft picks at the, swapping picks at the draft or whatever, but that's it. Now, according to these sources, Ken Hughes does not want to break up the young core of the Montreal Canadiens that they've developed and brought together there. They're kind of reluctant to move a core piece for a player that they feel is going to upgrade them, because obviously they have, especially for a veteran guy that may not, either be there as long. It might not be part of their solution for as long of a period of time, right? So, you have to be careful for sure. But at the end of the day, they do need some center depth. And Zacha is a player that many feel make great sense for Montreal. You could argue make great sense for Calgary. Calgary believed to be very much involved as well. Now, league sources also say that these trade scenarios that have been discussed are more of a case that the Bruins are not actively shopping Pavel Zacha. They are quite content to hang on to this player, but they've had plenty of inquiries from other teams, predominantly these two, for the player because of the fact that they both need this kind of player, and it's somewhat of a thinner market. So obviously a team like the Bruins, who bottomed out last year, a lot of teams and fans probably expect them to not be a whole lot better this year. So it makes sense that other NHL teams are going to probably look at their roster and be like, well, maybe we can get this guy. Maybe they would be willing to move him as they continue a retool. So that seems to be the case for what Ken Hughes, and in the case of Calgary, Craig Conroy, have probably had in mind. Now, we've also got in this report some names from the Montreal side that have been tossed around, and that league sources are saying that they've heard bantered about in different trade scenarios that have been discussed on the Zacha situation, as well as other centermen that they've looked at around the league. So sources say players like Joshua Waugh, Oliver Kapanen, and Jaden Struble are the main names that we've heard that to some degree the Habs might be willing to include in a deal. Now, I think Waugh makes a lot of sense. He's a player who kind of lost his footing in the organizational depth. Now, it sounds like he's had a really big summer and he's really ready to come into camp and kind of prove people wrong, but it's going to, I think, be harder for him to earn a spot back. A lot of people thought last year was his spot to lose, and he lost it and spent the year in the minors. Kapanen is an up-and-coming player who I think they're fond of. Struble, I think they like as well, but for the foreseeable future, he's probably going to be a third-pair defenseman. As much as they like him, they probably feel he's more replaceable, especially considering the right side of their blue line. You still got a guy like Reinbacher coming up. Somebody on that right side is probably going to have to move. Eventually, you get Dobson's locked in long-term. You got Struble. Obviously, they might have a player have to play their weak side, like Matheson or somebody for the time being as well. So not to say there couldn't be room for Reinbacher and Struble, but with Reinbacher's projected upside, Struble probably would always be stuck as a third-pair defenseman. Now, of course, this is not the first time that Struble has been linked to the Bruins. The Bruins have had, apparently, their eye on this player before, when he was in college, and even before that, when he was playing at the lower levels in the because he's from the area as well, and he went to school. Well, I believe he grew up in Rhode Island, so it's not too far. And he went to school in university at Northeastern, so they would have seen him plenty. Bruin scouts in that area, of course, watch a lot of those college hockey programs quite closely, right? So he's a player they would have seen a lot coming up through the years that they're very, very familiar with. So makes sense that if they like his game and they're fond of him, that he would be a name to watch. Now, we know that he's probably going to be Struble, that is, in a battle with likely Arber Xhekaj for the last, the number 6 spot in the D-Corps. Obviously, it's expected Struble, I think many people think, myself included, that Struble would have a little bit of a leg up on Xhekaj. If you look at how the minutes were handed out and how things went last year down the stretch, Xhekaj was the scratch, kind of lost faith a little bit with Marty St. Louis. He kind of leaned on Struble a little bit more, so I think it's his spot to lose. But they do have 7 capable defensemen, and obviously they could give more. It wouldn't be such a battle between Xhekaj and Struble if they trade Struble. So obviously moving him might not be preferable, but if you're going to get yourself a nice veteran number 2 center to really improve your depth and improve the overall team and give them a better shot at improving and continuing on what they built on last year, it might be a good move. So clearly, these two teams have had conversations. I don't know exactly if it'll get done, and if so, what will be the full return or full package on both sides. But watch the names of Waugh, Kapanen, and Struble in the continued discussions with the Bruins around Pavel Zacha. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. Of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.